ゴムゴムのエレファントガン
Hello. Hey, thanks for joining me for another episode on my channel. Before I get into the model build, I just wanted to give a quick update because it's been about 8 months since my last video, and I've gotten messages from people wanting to know what's going on. Without getting into too much detail, last September 2025, I was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. So since then, I've gone through about 20 treatments of radiation, and I've been on chemo. And fortunately, good news is it's just about all cleared up and gone away. I'm about 98% clear right now. Still got a little bit more chemo left to go. But because of the side effects and all, just was not able to do the model building. I've had really bad neuropathy, which has affected my hands and feet, making it very difficult to try to build, on top of other side effects from all of it. But just want to let you guys know what was going on. I've tried not to make it too public because I haven't been looking for sympathy or anything like that, and I just didn't want to throw it out there, but I thought I owed you guys since it's been so long since I posted. I mean, this model build I'm going to be showing you right now, that even took me almost 2 months to do just because it was so difficult for me to do. But I had to do it because this is a build I did for my son for his 25th birthday. So anyway, that's what's going on, and let's dive into the model build. So I will be building the Going Merry pirate ship from One Piece. This is my son's absolute favorite manga, anime, story of all time. So I thought it would be fun to build this for him for his 25th birthday. So let's take a look at what we've got here. So this is a Bandai kit. So of course, as usual, the detail is great, and I'm sure it'll fit together great. Here we have the main hull of the ship. This model is modeled in color. Some of it I'm going to go ahead and use. Here's the main sail. Here's some decals for the main sail, as well as some other parts for the ship. We have some cannons here. We have all the characters that I will paint and place on the ship. We got Luffy, Usopp, Zoro, Nami, Sanji, and Chopper. Here's the bottom of the hull for the ship. Here we have all the railing and the head that goes on the front of the ship here, as well as some orange trees, which I am not happy with at all. I will replace those. Then we have the masts for the sails, some flags, ropes and things that go on the masts. You can see the fine detail here and where they attach to the ship. Here we have the base and another sail. More stickers that they give you, stickers and decals to use. Here we have the deck of the ship, and of course the instructions. So I'm going to start right off from the beginning of the instructions, and it's going to have us start out with working on the deck here. So I'm going to go ahead and start putting these together. So I'm going to pull them out here and just start removing these deck pieces from the sprues so that I can start assembling them together. And here we have the mid deck, rear deck, some walls there. So I'm going to cut these out. So you can see on the pieces here, I've got some little pieces there from where I cut it out on the sprues. I have this new razor thing, which is really nice, that I picked up just to sand off the little nubs from the sprues. Now I've done that to the stairs. I'm going to put the stairs on. We have these wall pieces here that need to be attached, as well as these stair railings. And I've sanded all those down as well, the notches, and I'm just going to put these pieces on with the little stair railings. And now I'm going to start working on the hull. So I'm going to remove these from the sprues. We have this large cannon which goes in the front of the ship, so I need to install that when I put the hull together. So just putting these two cannon pieces together. And of course we have a nice seam down the middle with a little spot there where I cut it off the sprue. So I have glued this together with some Tamiya fine cement, which I have here. That filled in the gaps a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is go ahead and cut out these other cannons here, which will go on the sides. And then I'm going to start sanding all the cannons to get rid of these seams. Shot of Tamiya fine gray primer here. You can't see the seams. I'm going to paint them with the Tamiya X10 gunmetal. And I'm going to go ahead and apply with an airbrush. And I'm really happy with how this has turned out and how this looks. Looks nice and clean, you don't see any seams there. So this hull has to have the deck piece assembled before I can put the hull together. So I'm going to go ahead and put the deck in there. This front cannon has to be put in before I can put the other half of the hull. And then attach the other half. Then I also have the two smaller cannons, which I sanded and painted as well. Those get pushed into the sides here of the hull. Then I have the bottom of the hull, which I will attach. And it comes with these white stickers to paint all this area white. I'm sorry, to cover all this area for white. But I am planning on painting it with airbrush. But this front piece here where there's that bad portion, I am going to use the sticker right there. So I'm going to peel this sticker off. And I'm going to attach the sticker to that front section there. And just try to center and line it up and push the sides down. That just kind of covers up that nub area there. Here I have the back portion of the ship, the rudder, and the back. And the two rudder halves will just fit together. And the rudder fits into this back section. Here we have the base. I'm going to go ahead and cut this out and assemble so I can put the ship on it. So we just got these two pieces that go on either side of the base here so that the hull can sit inside there, and at least that way I have a way of supporting the ship while I'm working on it. It also comes with this sticker, Going Merry sticker, which goes on the front. And there you can see how the hull sits right in there and it'll support it for me. Here we have a rope for the anchor. It attaches to this nub here and then goes to this hull. So I've made a knot here, attached it to the nub. Then I have this going through the hole for the anchor. And here we have the anchor. So I'm going to cut that out and then just tie it onto the end of this rope. Then you just push it in and it kind of hangs there. So here's the back piece. Just push this onto the back of the hull here. Then we have the railings. So I'm going to start with these that go over the walls. Put those in position. Here we have the front deck and the rear deck. So this is the front, which goes right here. Railing was kind of getting in the way there a little bit. Then we have the rear, which is actually a two-step rear deck. And then that just attaches right back here. Then we have another piece of railing which goes there. Now we have this cabin which goes on the upper deck at the rear of the ship. So I'm going to cut out all the pieces for this cabin. And we have the walls which just attach to the deck here. And then we have the roof. So I'm going to start out by doing some washing over the decks. I'm going to pull the rear deck off. I'm going to use some XF55 deck tan from Tamiya and do a quick wash over it and see how that looks. The molded color, that tan color, is actually pretty accurate to the wood deck on the actual ship for the live action anyway. I'm painting this as a live action even though the model itself is based after the manga. But it's like a tannish wood, kind of a whitewashed look on the wood here. Dab all that off. It did give it some texture. So you can see here in the live action how it looks. So I think I'm actually going to do a light, slightly darker gray and neutral gray from Tamiya. And do another wash over this with the neutral gray. Just darken it up a little bit more, make it look a little more weathered. And that's how we have it looking there so far. Do the same thing to the rear deck. And I like the way that's turning out and looking so far. I'm pretty happy with that. Now I'm going to do some weathering on this back cabin. I'm going to start with the black wash to fill in all the cracks from the wood itself, from the panels. So you can see all the panels there. And it'll also give a little detail to the wood grain itself. And you can see how that's adding detail there. And then I'm going to use some wooden deck tan, XF78 from Tamiya. Do some dry brush to try to pick up some of the detail in the wood, the grain itself. So I try to pick up that grain. You can see some of that's been picked up. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the hull. I'm going to weather all that wood to make it stand out. Again, I'm going to use the Viejo black wash. Dab it off so it picks up the separation of the wood planks themselves. And you can see that there compared to this side, how it gives a lot more depth and detail. And then I did the same thing with the rudder. And here we have the entire hull black washed. And I like the way that's looking too. It picks up the separation between the wood planks and it makes it look a little dirty and grungy. And then what I'm going to do now, this whole big strip here is supposed to be metal. So I've taped off the wood hull. I'm going to use some Tamiya metallic gray XF56. And I'm going to paint that large band with the metallic gray, and I'm going to airbrush that on there. Then we're going to remove all the masking tape. And there you can see how that metallic strip looks, the metal band down the side of the ship. Next up, I'm going to do a little more work on this cabin. I'm going to use some sand and soot and different pastels from Tamiya. Make some of the planks slightly different shades of wood, some of them darker, some of them lighter, just to give a little more detail to all this. You can see there how that's looking. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the trim around the windows with Tamiya XF9 brown, because it's a brown trim around that, and the door as well. And then I'm going to use a little bit of mud and light sand and do some more work here in the wood, just to make everything kind of pop and not look so perfect. These walls in here are also supposed to be brown. You can see here in this photo from the live action set, it's the same brown as the hull. So I've masked off the deck so that I can airbrush brown into those wall pieces. And I'm going to be using flat earth from Viejo. You can see it's about the same shade as the hull of the ship. And then once I do weathering, it'll all look pretty close. So I'm going to airbrush those walls there with the Viejo flat earth. And there you can see the wall painted on that side. But you'll notice here that this back cabin is a completely different shade of brown that they did when they molded it. So I want to match it more to the hull. So I've resprayed the entire thing with the flat earth so that it'll match closer to the hull and to the walls of the ship. And I've also gone through and weathered it like I did before. So the kit comes with these little stickers that you're supposed to put on the windows. And they have it so that it's a yellow trim rather than brown, and then just blue, and that looks very cartoonish. Which, if I was making it like the manga, I think would be totally fine. But since I'm trying to make it look more realistic, you can see in this shot from the show, there's like a light tan cross in the middle. So I created these in Photoshop, printed them out, and cut carefully around it. And I'm going to press it inside those and glue them into place to make it look more accurate. So I'm trimming up the size, trying to get it as round as possible. Then I'm going to pick it up, and you can see I can push it right in there, and it has that same look as it does on the live action. And I've cut those out for all the windows on the upper deck cabin. And then I've also printed out smaller ones. These are smaller windows in the walls here on both sides. You can see that there. You can see I have these slightly smaller ones, so I'm going to go ahead and grab those. You can see how small these are that I've done. Very small windows. And I've put the windows in place on the walls. And now what I'm going to do is start doing the white trim all around the hull of the ship. Goes all the way around the front, the sides. And I've masked everything off. We have these little side strips here. All this up here is supposed to be white. This band down the center. And I'm just going to airbrush everything white. And I've removed all the tape, and there we have all the white trim and bands and all around the hull of the ship. Pretty happy with how this has turned out as well. Definitely coming along. So I'm going to go ahead and put the back on here. I took it off when I was painting. And then I'm going to go ahead and install the cabin in place as well. So now what I'm going to do is start doing some weathering in these little areas here. I'm also just going to weather up all the white like it's been chipped. I'm going to use some German gray. Make it look like it's been touched by hands, by weather, chipped, just all of the above. But I'm going to start out by doing some weathering just to pick up the detail in this little swirl here. And you can see how those are. And it's fine that it's not perfect again, because like I said, I want this all to be weathered. Looks like this ship has been sailing for years. So I'm going to do all the bands and everything all around. And I'm using a sponge now with the German gray wash, so it's not perfect. Just kind of dabbing it on there, making everything look grungy. And you can see how that's starting to look there. How it's dirty looking and been touched by hands and what have you. Now I'm going to take some light sand and mud, or sand and mud rather, and I'm going to do some of that on the railings where people have touched it and held it when they walked up the stairs and when they're standing around. And I've done that. You can see some of the detail there. Even in the stairs, I did some mud to make it look like footsteps. I'm also going to do, like the cabin, I'm going to do some light sand and some soot on the different panels on the hull of the ship to make the panels, or the planks rather, stand out, different shades of wood and just weathered. So now I'm going to start working on the masts. And I'm going to start out with the large mast. And the two halves go together. Then we have the crow's nest, which goes up on the top. And then a flag, which goes in the center. It comes with stickers with the skull to put on the flag. I'm going to go ahead and use those. But I also need to cut out these little pieces here, which have to be attached to the crow's nest. I'm going to do that first. And then put the crow's nest back onto the mast. And I painted all around the trim of the flag with black because the stickers didn't fill the entire flag. Then I'm going to go ahead and put the sticker on and try to get that in there as good as I possibly can. And I've got the stickers on there. You can see they're a bit glossy, which I don't like. So what I've done is I've shot it with the coat of flat clear from Tamiya TS80 to flatten it out to make it look more fabric-y. So now I've got some other little pieces here that I need to cut out for the crow's nest, which attach to the crow's nest and then go up to the flag portion. You can see that there. I've also cut out all the pieces for the other flag that goes in the back of the ship. It has some ties which are going to go to the ship itself. And I also did the flag on the smaller mast. Now I need to weather the masts and the crow's nest. And also this piece here which attaches to the sail. So I'm going to be using some Viejo beige brown. I'm going to go ahead and try that over this to see if I can do some detailing here in the wood for the mast. And it looks pretty decent. It's looking more wood-like, and it separates the planks again that make up the mast. I did it on the small one here as well. But now I'm going to use some brown X9 to paint the ropes on this part here, or to weather them rather. Make them stand out a little bit more and be darker. And you can see how that's looking there, which attaches to the large sail. So now I want to work on the crow's nest. So I think it's going to be easier if I just pull all this apart and then remove the crow's nest and work on it on its own. So we've got the crow's nest here. And I'm going to use some beige brown to paint the wood of the crow's nest. And then I'm going to use dark brown for the trim on the top and bottom of the nest. Go ahead and airbrush the beige brown on there. Airbrush the regular brown for the trim. And there we have the crow's nest. I like the way that's looking so far. Painted the inside of it beige brown as well. And I like the way the wood looks. So I'm going to go ahead and attach this back to the mast. And there we have the crow's nest on the mast. So this piece here attaches to the rear sail. And then the kit came with some red stickers that you're supposed to put on the sail for the stripes. So I'm going to go ahead and use those right now just to test it out and see how they look. So I'm just going to remove the sticker. You can see how this one has a little hole in the sticker that lines up with the hole of the flag. And I'm going to go ahead and put all the stickers on and just see what I think about how it looks. And we've got them all attached here. And I'm not very happy with them. You know, they don't attach all the way the flag. There's gaps. So what I've done is removed them, taped off the areas that I'm going to paint red. Or taped off the areas I'm not going to paint red. And I'm going to go ahead and airbrush this all with Tamiya flat red XF7 paint. Go ahead and apply it with the airbrush. This way it'll pick up all the edges and everything, unlike the stickers. And go ahead and remove all my masking tape. And you can see the flag looks so much better. It's flat, not glossy. It goes all the way around the edges. I have a little cleanup I need to do in some spots, but it just looks so much better. And then I've done the weathering on this, attached it, and we have this little piece here which attaches to the top of the flag and then down to the piece that holds the sail. Just push both those on there. Now I'm going to attach the decal to the main sail. I'm going to put some microsol on the front of this first. And I'm going to go ahead and place the decal on here. And try to get all the creases out. Oop, tore there. Now I got to fix that up. I'm not too concerned because I'm actually going to weather the sail as well. Put on the bones here. And there we have the decals on the sail. I'm going to use some gunmetal X10 to paint these metal portions that hold the sail here and that attach to the wood piece. And I've gone through and I've hand painted all those with that gunmetal. And then that all attaches to this piece here. And then the sail attaches to the main mast. And you can see the little metal pieces, how they're attached there. Now I have this line here, which I need to remove, that goes from the top of the mast down to the deck of the ship. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this line. And I've painted some metallic gray on some of the pieces here that are supposed to be metal. Here I also did the gunmetal for the rear sail. So I'm going to attach this piece here to the rear sail, attach this line which goes to the top of the mast, and there we have the rear sail. And I've also gone through and painted all the pieces that are supposed to be metal on the lines, painted them with the metallic gray. So I had a little issue with the sail. Pieces came off and it chipped and all. My fault. I forgot to do a gloss coat first. So I'm going to fix it with weathering. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use some mud and or soot and dab it on those spots that have come off and just make it look a little bit more like maybe dirty spots. And then I'm also going to go ahead and just do that over all the sail itself. So I'm going to go ahead and attach the sail to the center of the ship here. And I'm going to attach the rear sail and push it into the deck here. So now it's time to take these lines from the mast and attach them to the edge of the deck. And I've got all four of them for the rear mast attached. And then I have the line from the front mast, which has to attach to the edge of the deck right here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And now with all of these parts here, which attach to the mast, I'm going to paint all these parts here a wood color. So they're like, I've painted them with chocolate brown. Some of these are metal also, which I've used gunmetal again. And then you'll notice on the brown, there's little metal attachments that I painted with gunmetal. So I'm going to go ahead and attach this line to the rear sail, and then it goes down to the deck. And oops, I just broke it with my tweezers. So I guess I'm going to have to glue that together. And I've gone ahead and glued that so that it attaches properly. Now I've got all these pieces removed. Again, you can see the metal bolts in the middle of the wood. This metal piece attaches to the mast here just underneath the crow's nest, and then it attaches on the side of the ship here. And I have a smaller one which attaches to the top of the crow's nest right here, and then attaches to the top portion of these bottom lines. So I've got all of them attached here. You can see they run down to both sides of the ship. Then I have a line which attaches to the top portion of this little piece here. And then it attaches to the bottom of the front sail. And I've got both of those attached, the one there, and you can see the one on the other side right over there. So I'm going to weather up and dirty up this rear sail a little bit, also using light sand and mud. Just want to make it look a little dirty. Things have hit it while they've been sailing. And you can see the weathering there, the dirtiness to it a bit. So now I'm going to go ahead and attach the rest of the railings and do the head for the front of the ship. So I'm going to go ahead and remove all these railings. I'm going to attach these ones which go on the back of the ship. And they just wrap around those lines. So there we have the rear ones. Then I have these which go on the front of the ship that I'm going to remove. And again, they just attach to the front, go around that line. And now I'm going to go ahead and remove all the parts for the goat head on the front of the ship. And this piece attaches to the side here. And the other one attaches on the other side. I also have these horns. I guess it's not a goat, I guess it's a ram head rather. And then these horns go together. And then we've got the head piece here. I'm going to attach the horns into them and then go ahead and push the head together. I'm going to use some Tamiya extra thin cement. I've used that to glue the head together and fill in the seam a little bit. And then I'm going to paint it with some Tamiya fine white primer. You can see the primer on there, and I've done some sanding, and you don't really see the seam at all down the head. So the head was supposed to be assembled over that piece there so that it would lock in place. You can see the bottom of the head is smaller. So I'm going to have to cut that off to fit the head on there because I wanted the head fixed first. So I'm just going to use my Dremel here, and I'm just going to grind off that top portion and leave that little nub so that the head can fit on there. So I'm just going to turn this and cut it right off of there. And there we go. I also need to weather the head, like in the curls of the horn, the mouth. There's stickers for the eyes, which I will use. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the German gray wash, like usual, to fill in the mouth and the little curls in the horns. And I painted the horns white because that's the way it is on the live action series. And now the head will fit right over that little nub there since I cut off that other part. And you know, it just fits right on there. I'm going to have to glue it into place. So I've gone and done that. I've glued it. I've put a little putty in there, and I'm going to sand it down and fix it. And I've also put some putty in here. I'm going to sand this down and fix it and repaint it white to make it look clean. And there we have it, sanded down and repainted. It's not perfect, but it's pretty close. I also realized that on the rear rudder, this band across the top was supposed to be metal, so I'm painting that with the same metallic gray that I used on the hull. And then I'll just slap this back onto the back of the ship here. So I also went through with a watered down red and yellow paint and filled in those gaps and did the black lines. So these are the orange trees that the kit comes with, which fit right into these little holes here. Here's one assembled. Here's what it would look like with the orange tree in there. Obviously it would be painted and paint some orange balls on there. But I picked up these trees, these miniatures from Etsy that are made for like doing, you know, trains and stuff like that. So I got some of these. I'm gonna lower the stem there. I'm also gonna I marked this ruler here, and I'm gonna make some crates for it to go in and score them to make it look like it's wood planks. So I'm just gonna score down this piece of styrene here on each one of my markings, and there you can see the score marks, and I'll weather those and fill it in. So I've got my 3 trees here. I just curled up the bottoms of them, and I'm putting it here just to kind of measure to see where I need to cut the styrene for the top of the crate. So I'll say I'll make the crate about that tall, then I'll measure that out. I'm going to make it 1 centimeter, so I'll make each of the crates a centimeter tall. So I'll just mark off a centimeter all the way down for all the sides of the crates that I'm going to make. So I've cut this out. I've got my markings here for the height of the crates. Cut all those out. Now I just need to start gluing them together. So I've glued 3 of them together here. I know they're not perfect. I also have this little piece of styrene here, and I'm going to make the trim around the top and bottom. And I've gone and I've done that, glued those into place. So these are my little wooden pots, crates for the orange trees. And then I've painted them with some fine white primer, because I am going to leave them white in color. And then I'm just going to go through and do a German gray wash over them to fill in, you know, the areas to make it look like planks. So here's all 3 of them done up with the gray wash. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill them with some hot glue about halfway. Just enough so that I can stick the tree in here and hold this for just a bit until the glue dries and holds the tree in place. And I have this sand here. This I'm going to use to make dirt. So with the tree glued in place with the hot glue, I'm going to fill the top portion with Elmer's glue, which you can see there. I'm going to spread it around a bit, make sure it covers the whole top. And then I'm going to take my sand and I'm going to pour it in there to make it look like it's soil for the tree, or rocks, since they are kind of a little big. Then what I'm going to do is once it's dried, I'm going to do a wash over those with chocolate brown to darken them up a bit and make it look darker, more like soil. So here we have all 3 trees done in their pots. I'm going to do a little bit of weathering on the pots with some pastels just to dirty them up a bit. And here they are, all ready to be put into place. So I'm just going to take one at a time, put it into position, take my Tamiya thin cement, and then just glue them into position on the top of this cabin. So here we are with all 3 orange trees glued into position on the top of the cabin and the back of the ship. Looks so much better than those plastic trees. So there's a cannon here that I'm going to assemble and put together. There's also a little trap, a little barrel, and a little crate for putting around the ship. I put all those together, just 2 pieces. You know, and here's a crate. This is like a fishing trap or a crab trap or something, and then we have a barrel. Like the other cannons, I sanded this down, got rid of the seam, and painted it with my gun metal. And I'm going to use some beige brown to paint the sides, make it wood colored. And there we have the sides painted, and all the bolts are dabbed with some gun metal as well to make them look like metal bolts. And then this gets glued right on the back of the ship right here in the center. So I'm just going to put that into position and then just take a little Tamiya thin cement and glue the wheels down to the deck. So the crate, this trap, and this barrel, in the show they've got tons of wine barrels on the deck. So I ordered from Etsy some barrels which are pretty much the same scale as the one that came with the model. You can see I put them on the side here just to show how they look unpainted. And then I've got some that are going to go on the other side as well. So I've primed them with some Tamiya white primer. Then I'm going to airbrush them with some Tamiya wooden deck tan XF78 because they're very light wood in the show. And you can see those are all painted now like a light wood color. Then I'm going to go through with some chocolate brown from Viejo, and I'm going to do a wash over them just to pick up all the details of the slats and separation of the wood planks and all. And then I'm going to paint the crate and the trap with Tamiya flat earth. So I'm going to go ahead and airbrush those, make them a slightly different shade of wood than the barrels. And here we have everything painted. So these barrels, I'm going to use some Viejo chocolate brown, and I'm going to paint the bands that go around the barrels. So very carefully, I'm just going to take a very thin paintbrush and go around and do the tops, the bottoms, and the bands that go around the barrels in the middle. And do that to all. I'm using 10 or 11 barrels. And then I also weathered up the other crate in that little trap. And here we have everything glued into position on the ship. All glued down, all the barrels. So now it's time to work on the base here. I've taped off this trim around the sides. I'm going to keep that gold, but I'm going to paint the rest of the base black. I'm going to use my Army Painter matte black and just spray the whole thing with that. And here we have it black. I'm going to pull off all my tape here, and then you see like that gold trim, and then you have the gold pieces that go here that hold the ship. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take these Going Merry stickers and stick those onto the front and back side of the base as well. And here we have it all completed. And then the ship will just sit right on top of there, and you'll see it's the Going Merry. So here we have the finishing touch, all the characters. These are very small. Painting stuff like this is not exactly my forte, but I'm going to do my best, especially the condition I'm in. My hands are not working as well as I would like, but I'm going to cut all these characters out and do my best. Cut Usopp out here, and then his arms, and there we got Sanji. Alright, so I've glued them all together and I painted them all with a fine gray primer. And I'm going to use some Tamiya pale flesh and just paint all the areas of them that are flesh colored. And I'm going to go ahead and do that with an airbrush. Here we have all the areas that are flesh colored. You know, I did overspray, which is fine because I'll be painting their clothes by hand. And Sanji here. So Luffy has a red vest, so I'm going to go ahead and start painting his vest red with flat red from Tamiya. Got that all painted up here. Then his pants, I'm going to use some flat blue from Viejo to paint his jeans. Just go ahead and do up his jeans all the way here. So I've got those done. And then what I've done is I'm going to mix some flat blue with a little bit of white to paint the bottom portion where it's folded over. You know how the underside is paler? Since they're folded over, I'm going to go ahead and paint that with a light blue mixture I made from flat blue and white. And there we have Luffy's clothes painted up. Then I did his hair in black. We have his hat here, which I'm going to paint with some sand primer from Viejo. I'm just going to hand paint it. Then I'm going to use a Sharpie thin marker, and I did the red band around the top of the hat. And then I'm going to take a little bit of flat yellow and just do a little bit of a wash over the top of the sand primer, just to make it a slightly different shade. Here we have Chopper. I'm going to paint the color of his fur with wooden deck tan. And I'm just going to airbrush that on him. And then his hat, I'm going to airbrush with flat red. And then I'm using beige brown from Viejo, and I painted his antlers with the beige brown. And then some flat white. I'm going to paint the X in the middle of his hat right there. And then there's these little bands, or there's a band on the side of his antler, and I painted that with some chrome silver, just a little ring on his antler. So his shorts are a purplish color, so I've made my own purple using some flat red and blue. I'm going to go ahead and paint his shorts the purple color. And there we have his shorts all done. And there's his hat on, and I've painted his little hooves with black. Now on to Sanji. I'm going to use a medium blue to paint his shirt. Go ahead and get in there and paint that up. This might be a little dark. I might need to lighten it up, but you can see his shirt is painted and where the shirt comes out from underneath the jacket. Then I'm going to go ahead and paint his jacket and pants and shoes. It's all black. And here we have them all done up in black. Yellow for the buttons on his jacket. So I'm going to go ahead and carefully paint the buttons on his jacket yellow. This blue is a little dark for me. It doesn't pop as much as it should, so I'm going to use some sky blue over it so that it'll pop more against the black. And there we have it with the sky blue, and then his tie, a dark blue. Then I use some Tamiya flat yellow and Viejo sand primer for his hair. Usopp being darker skin, I'm going to see how beige brown is going to look for that. So I've painted him with a beige brown. Doesn't look too bad. So actually I lightly airbrushed over all of his skin with some wooden deck tan because I actually felt it was a little too dark before. And now I'm going to go ahead and start painting his outfit. And his shirt I'm using wooden deck tan straight. Then we have this little white portion here, his little band around him. And the bottom of his pants are also white. Then there's also this band around his wrist, which is white. I'm going to paint his overalls with Viejo chocolate brown. I'm going to use some JA green from Tamiya to paint his shoes. His shoes are a greenish color. And then I also did the bands on his wrist with blue. And I painted the top of his hat and his hair and did his eyes and mouth. Here we have Zoro with flat black pants. Painted the bottom portion of his shirt with flat green. Then I went through with flat white and painted his shirt. Got that little band around his arm in green. Flat white and green for his hair to make it a lighter green color. Painted his swords white, black, and red. I'm going to use this gold marker to paint the tips of the swords and the tip of the sheath. Nami I've already gone and painted with orange sandals, orange hair, yellow skirt, and black top. And I've given all the characters a clear coat now so that I can do a wash over them. I'm going to do a flesh wash over all of their skin areas to give them tone and depth. And here we have all of them done now. I even painted their faces, which I couldn't show on camera. The eyes and stuff are very hard for me. I don't think I did a great job on that. They're so small you can't really tell when you're looking at them with the naked eye. The camera certainly picks it up, that's for sure. Sanji's little cigarette sticking out of his mouth. Anyway, there they are, painted up, all ready to go. And I'm going to go ahead and put them in position onto the ship. Got Luffy sitting on the top front like he always does. Glue him in place with some Tamiya thin cement. Then we're going to put Nami on the front top deck here. And I finished painting her shirt pink. Then we got Chopper who's going to sit right here. Then Sanji I'm putting on the top of the deck underneath the trees. Zoro has his swords attached. And then he sits right back here on the back of the ship next to the cannon. Usopp up in the crow's nest. So there we have everything done, and it's time to show you the completed build. Hey, if you like watching my videos, please feel free to give them a like. And so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos, click subscribe.